Welcome to Know Your Candidate podcast. This is an opportunity for candidates from across Tauranga City wards to tell their stories, their experiences, their reasonings in their own words. A format which gives them more than the public debates and profiles that you've seen already. An opportunity for the voter, the ratepayer, future resident to get to know who you want leading the city and, importantly, are they capable of doing so? Anne Pankhurst, a previous business owner, councillor and political junkie, will find out more why the candidates want to run, where they have come from, what they're going to do. So let's not wait anymore. Let's go.
Good morning, and we're here this morning with Heidi Hughes from the Mount Ward. How are you, Heidi?
Good morning. Lovely to be here, Anne. I'm really great.
Good. So, welcome to our Know Your Candidate podcast series. Our format is to take the opportunity for a longer, more conversation approach so you, the candidate, can speak and share your own aspirations for the city. We'll take about 20 to 30 minutes answering pre-prepared questions of which you don't know what they are, which is a trick. But the most important aspect of this election is that you vote and that you get everyone you know to vote. Democracy works when we all engage, actively take part, learn about our candidate, understand what's important for us for the future of the city. So remember to follow Know Your Candidate series on thepodhub.com. Get everyone to vote. So we'll start, Heidi, with can you give us a brief rundown on yourself? You know, who are you, children, no children, what you've done in the past. Give us that brief bio on yourself.
Sure, thanks, Anne. So I'm a mother of two, and our family moved into the Mount area 8 years ago. Our kids have grown up through the schools here, which has been amazing. And my history, I've got a degree in Parks and Recreation Management and a postgrad in Sustainable Practice. And I've worked a lot in the event space of my own businesses. I'm currently chair on 2 boards. And yeah.
So you answered one of the first questions, and that is around, do you have any governance roles? And if so, what is the average size of the budget that you're working with for those governance roles?
Currently, at the moment, the 2 organisations that I work with have very small budgets, but they have big impact. So they one is both are around sort of $300,000 per year. So they're small budgets. However, I have been on the board, obviously, of Tauranga City Council before, so I do understand big budgets, and I do understand how budgets need to work. Yeah.
So that was leading into my next question, which is what experience have you had with TCC? And clearly you were a previous councillor. You do understand the size and significance of what you're working with. So do you want to tell us a bit more about your previous experience there?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's super valuable to have had that experience. I was a new councillor when I came in, and I have to say the whole period of that time was 1.5 years. And it took that amount of time to really understand the systems, because it's incredibly complex. We're not only dealing with the budgets and the plans from the current council, but all of the plans that sit underneath it, all of the government policy statements and the RMA, and it's a big beast. So while I was in last time, while I was learning a lot and obviously dealing with an incredibly complex political situation at the time, I was also able to put myself in a place that I feel now a lot more confident to walk in and actually help to have an overview so that I can work with the team to get better outcomes. Because last time I didn't have much control over what was going on at the time, and I think this time having that experience is going to be super helpful if I do get elected. Yeah.
I think you've summed that up brilliantly well. I have to admit that when I first went into council, I sat there for the first 3 months blinking. What have I done? You know, and not understanding the size and scale of what you've gone into, and the level of detail that you're required to govern over. I think those things are really huge, and if you don't understand that, it's really challenging when you first go on.
Yeah, I agreed, because you straight away have to start making decisions too, don't you? So it's not like you can go in and just learn and then
Give me a minute. You've
you've got to be on your feet and making decisions as you go. And all of those decisions between LTPs are all related back to old plans. So all of the decisions have this background behind them that takes a long time to catch up on. So, yeah.
So the skill set I'd really love to drill down on is the ability and experience in managing complex commercial and political environments. And I guess you've kind of answered that already a little bit about your previous experience of that, because you were in a highly politicized environment. So I'm just wondering what skill set that you think you bring to help that along.
Yeah, I think the big piece that I bring is that I like to think in systems rather than in individual pockets of problems. I'm very interested in how city design can help us to achieve some of our community outcomes. I'm really interested in how transport and housing choice and the decisions that are made at government level. And also examples that from overseas. I really like that whole space of integrated planning. So I think that's the piece I bring is a systems thinking lens over our city.
So if funding is a huge problem, and we do need a lot of funding for the huge infrastructure spend we're about to make, what would one of your solutions be to those funding conundrums?
To be honest, I think one of our biggest, I would like to see us push for a unitary council. And I know that that's a next level solution. However,
Can I just interrupt you just for a moment? Can you explain what a unitary council is for those that don't understand? We know the language, but not everyone does.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we have 3 councils governing our city, our region. We have in the Western Bay of Plenty region, we have 210,000 people, and we have 3 councils governing them. So unitary is where the regional council, what the regional council does and the city council does comes all under one roof. So you have one organisation. We've got massive duplication at the moment, but a very small council with Western Bay that are trying to do a lot of the same things that Tauranga City Council are trying to do. And we're all trying to work better together, but it's incredibly, in my view, we're doing a lot of duplication, and it's costing thousands and millions of dollars at the moment to do that. So in my view, while we need to work on our LTP to make sure that we've got all the costings, that we're not kind of blowing out our budget, I would like to see us look at a business case or a case for working towards a unitary council.
Managing that wonderful word amalgamation. It's nearly a swear word in the city, isn't it? So what would a solution to funding be after becoming a unitary council, I guess? Do you think that would help the funding conundrum?
I do, because of the efficiencies involved in having a unitary council. You would have everyone under one roof. You wouldn't have 3 separate organisations, 3 governance teams, 3 transport teams, 3. There's a lot of efficiencies that can happen through that. It also gives us a bigger overall budget to look at, so we can look at our region as a whole. So it does actually change the funding dynamic by a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So given that you govern at large, which you're acutely aware of, how do you see the collective action when it's not what you think your ratepayers or some of your ratepayers would be happy with? And how do you manage that conflict? Because ultimately you do have to govern at large. You might be making a decision for Bethlehem that the Mount people or vice versa don't appreciate.
Yeah, totally. I think that really, really good community engagement and trust is at the heart of that, because there's always reasons why you might be making a decision that at that time doesn't necessarily resonate for residents in a certain area. So I think it's explanation and explaining, and also a lot better ground up community decision making. So I think we can do a way better job of feeling like we've taken, or of actually taking the community along with us, and that would help to just build more trust and more ongoing input so that people really understand the decisions that we're making at a higher level. And to be honest, you can't make everybody happy all of the time. So I think it's just you've got to be really clear in your own convictions and your own vision as well, and so that when people vote for you, they understand. Well, the reason you got in is because you were really clear about what you want, and therefore you have a certain mandate to make those kind of decisions during your term in council.
So I'm just looking to your reaction to the view that Tauranga is a critical part of New Zealand Inc. and its growth. So we have to think more nationally than locally because what happens here matters nationally.
Yeah.
So what's your view on that?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult being in a 3-year cycle politically at a government level because the kind of like a lot of the problems with our LTP at the moment is because we're still waiting for all of the government changes to land. With Three Waters was in and then it was out, and then and we still don't know a lot of what's happening with the housing density. There's big pieces in there, right? So I think that's our reality, so we can't really change that. I'm hoping that we'll be able to engage with the government on some of the local government changes that need to happen. I think funding's a massive issue for councils. We're having to rate people because of a lot of projects that, in my view, should be central government funded. For example, we have the country's largest port here. It's a nationally significant port. There needs to be some eroding project in Totara Street, Hewlett's Road, but it shouldn't be on our books. That's a nationally significant piece of work that, in my view, should be a nationally funded piece of infrastructure. So I think there's a lot of advocacy we can do on our part, and it's just managing what the opportunities are with whatever government you've got in power to be able to make it work for your communities.
Advocacy. What do you consider the role of mayor and councillors to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my view, so we've got a different setup this time. We did have at-large councillors last time and some ward councillors, and now we have all ward councillors and a mayor. So that does change the function a little bit. In my view, I would like to think that the mayor and deputy mayor had a lot of that advocacy relationship roles, because if we have 11 people kind of going and making all these relationships, then it's a little bit disconnected. So I think that, in my view, should be the role of the mayor and deputy mayor on the basis of what comes out of those council meetings, however, not just on their own tangent. But I don't think necessarily that ward councillors should be bouncing around trying to make all sorts of random relationships and demands on central government. I think we need to have the right kind of forums for that.
And that goes back to that whole idea that you govern at large. So you're governing locally, but certain people in the council do the bigger job.
Yeah.
On the plane to Wellington constantly.
Yeah, well, yeah, if it takes that. Hopefully we've got good relationships in Zoom these days.
Yeah, that was a metaphorical. That was metaphorical. So how do you hope to manage multiple competing interests such as reasonable rates, new funding models, infrastructure debt? How would you choose between investing in growth and versus rate relief? Because there is a lot of angst out there about the rate relief.
Yeah, there is. I think that we need to invest in the city personally. Well, not personally. I think that we have had extraordinary growth and we are in catch-up mode. And in my view, the investments we're doing now is about future generations, and we need to be really cognizant of that we're not just responding to kind of reactionary issues of today, but we're investing in future generations. But having said that, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not just blowing the budget left, right, and centre. So there's we've got to look into as many different funding models as we can. We've got to have really good relationships with developers. We've got to have great relationships with government and with community groups. And also just we've got to make sure that we're bringing the community along. And that comes back to that kind of idea of how we do engagement better. And I'm super interested in that kind of community-led process of engagement that isn't kind of down to the long-term plan before we talk to them properly.
So I'm just going to ask you a question about you personally, kind of. So can you give an example of a previous leadership role where you didn't achieve what you'd hoped for from the role, and how you dealt with the failure, and what were the lessons that you learned out of that you bring into this role?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've learned over the years is that there's not just one way to achieve results. There's not one way to get a cat. That's a horrible.
Oh, yes, because I like cats.
So I think it's really important to kind of be able to let go as well, and to understand that, especially in this role, that there's many different views and values that you're juggling with, and you can't win every single thing but also your viewpoint is not the only way that the world is seen and the world operates. So you've just got to be really able to be in a positive space, take the wins, and also though be reflective on the things that you might not necessarily have come out the way you thought they might want to.
Something else you said earlier, you talked about the 3-year cycle, and this particular council will go on for the first ever in New Zealand's history of a 4-year council. And I'm wondering if you kind of think that it is time to move to a 4-year cycle for governing, because of the challenges that particularly this city has, that 3 years simply isn't long enough to get stuff done.
Completely agree. I've advocated for that right through. The complexities that we're dealing with now are just so much greater than councils or governments 30, 40, 50 years ago. We've got all of the kind of the changing climate risk, the changing global I guess
Issues.
issues and all of the various kind of government and local policies, etc. So I think it's just too fast. When we flip and change every 3 years, it costs a lot of money and you never get to embed anything. And we need to kind of allow things to bed in before we turn around and decide whether we want to change things again. And I don't think 3 years gives us the opportunity to do that.
Do you think that fundamentally the local government model, present working model, is broken and needs some kind of reasonably dramatic change?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that I think the funding model is broken in local government with central government. I think there's too much. We need to manage growth and how to do that, but we're not given the tools to be able to do that from central government currently. I also think that just there's lots of little things about local government that I think could be better. I don't think that we should be able to have career politicians. I think that if we were in a 4-year term, I think that 2 terms would be enough. And if we're in 3-year terms, I think 3 terms would be enough. Because I think we need to get fresh thinking through. I think we need to do a lot more work on getting young people voting, and I think that could happen in schools. And we're currently not actually representing the whole community right now, and I'd really love to see this much more empowered young community understand what civics is all about, understand what their councils do, and actually then have a say in its future, because they're the people that we're trying to make decisions for.
Well, I would agree entirely. The city's no longer for me. I've had my day. It's all about the youth. We are planning for the youth, because, as I say, you don't wake up on Monday and think, let's build a road in somewhere or build a whatever that's years of planning. So another question, and I know it's dear to your heart, sustainability and the environment are very important to you. How can TCC be cognizant of that and have that as, it's meant to have that as one of the well-beings, but it doesn't necessarily always prioritise it in the scheme of well-beings.
Mm. Yeah, I'd like to see our budgets. I'd like to see us do. I've just been actually kind of looking at the LTP, and even though they have the 4 well-beings, kind of, yes, we're ticking that one. There's kind of a dot for that, a dot for that. But what does that actually look like in the way that we're spending our budget? So I'd really like to see a much better analysis of, if we say that we want to work on climate change, or where is the budget that is actually achieving that, and how are we showing that we're doing that? I think we can do a much better job of making our budgets much more kind of transparent and visible to what outcomes we're trying to achieve. So marrying them back to the outcomes is, yeah.
Do you think that the 4 well-beings are understood well enough by the community? That is one of that is council's role to actually be very cognizant of those 4 well-beings? Do you think it's very well understood?
No, I don't, because I think that it comes down to such binary choices all the time. We're asked whether we want a museum or a pool, or we're going to have this road or that road. And so I don't think that whether the story isn't told about, when you build a museum, what well-beings are we really, there's amazing it's not just about storing our artifacts. It's all about all of these other stories and all of these other well-beings that we're supporting along the way. For example, and I don't think we're telling those stories well enough at the moment. Although, having said that, it's super difficult to tell those stories now, because people are so awash with information that this small soundbite is sometimes the only way that you get into people, and they kind of get very channeled into their own algorithm. So it is super challenging to tell that story with community. And I don't know really what the answer is to that, except that I think that a more on-the-ground engagement process, localised engagement process, can really help with that.
Would you like to explain what you mean by localised?
Yeah, and I haven't. So I kind of like the citizens' assembly idea, that you bring, say, that you have a rolling number of, say, 80 or 100 people that are taken from all demographics in the community, and they're thrown together every sort of month to tell them what's going on in their local community, but also to get their ideas and input, and also to have a little budget that they could work with locally, just super local stuff, and have that in each area, so that it's really localized. But it's not a very kind of, it's not a it's not
Not a
like
formalized.
it's
No.
not a bureaucratic kind of board process. It's more of a
Conversation.
conversation, that continues, and that the information taken out of that is always fed back in, so that people get a much better ongoing community understanding of what their needs and wants are. So the two-way process back and forwards is a lot more fluid than it is through the consultation process.
Well, Heidi, thank you very much for your time. We're rapidly running out, but it's been a wonderful podcast with you, and I wish you luck, and look forward to the future. And remember to vote, and tell everyone you know to vote, and to share this link through your networks, because it's going to also be really important. And follow us on thepodhub.com. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Anne, for having me. I love this long format. It just gives a real opportunity to say things and chat. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tune in to the next episode of Know Your Candidate to be informed on who you want to run your city. Got feedback and like to comment your thoughts on the episode? Connect with Know Your Candidate on social. This has been the podhub.com experience. Check out the podhub.com for other podcasts and how you can even do your own.